So we were these like alternative people and kind of bewildered by society, which we thought was strange. And I'm sure society thought we were strange weirdos or whatever. And then all of a sudden we're like this number one band in the world. And so that was like a real shock.
Hello, I'm Mike Hipple, and welcome to another episode of Live Through That, the companion podcast to my book, where I look at influential 90s musicians and where they are today. On this podcast, we dig deeper into a pivotal moment in the life of one of the artists I feature in the book. Today, we're talking with the musician, activist, farmer, bassist, and accordion player Krist Novoselic, talking about his salad days before his band hit it big. You may have heard of that band, Nirvana.
It was the late 1980s, and I was an industrial painter. And to just describe that, it wasn't like an artistic painter in like the field of industrial postmodern, that kind of thing. It was my job is I would go to factories and I would paint aluminum mills, aircraft factories, paper mills, and that's what I did. And I also was in a band and had my own place to live, and I had a lot of fun. It was a fun time. Like everything was new and exciting. But I also I had this mainstream job, but I really wasn't a mainstream person. I didn't feel like it. Like I would go to work and I enjoyed the company of my fellow workers, but I really didn't connect with them. Like I really wasn't into television or sports or mainstream politics. I just I was I enjoyed my job. I like painting, and I still like painting. I still like paint my own house, or I'll paint my kitchen or whatever. Just kind of, I'm always like working, so I'm pretty busy around here on the ranch doing that. And but I also played in a band too, and like on the weekends, I guess I lived for the weekends to go, and some weeknights too. I was in a band with Kurt Cobain, and we had various drummers we played with at the time. And so on Thursday night we'd go play the Vogue, or we'd play these clubs in Seattle or Tacoma or Olympia. And I had a fun time doing it. And then I came to a point where I had some changes in my life with like a relationship, and I quit the job, and I was pretty much broke. And I had saved up some money, and I had bought a van for the sole purpose of having a tour van for the band. So it was like all about the band. And I found a room to rent in Olympia. And there was like this hippie house, these Evergreen State College people. And I actually had two vans at the time. I had a old split window Volkswagen van, and I had this Dodge van that was like the band van because it was had more power to haul gear and people. And then I actually, ironically, I couldn't be broke for too long, so I I got a job at a Sizzler, and I had just enough money to rent that room, which was like $150. And then I was so down and out that I actually went to the food bank for a couple weeks to eat. They had like a meal there, and that's when I better get a job because I can't do this. And so I got a job at a Sizzler, and just started playing music again. Not again. I was always playing music, but it was really kind of that was the priority. Is like, I'm just going to play this music and have as much fun as possible. And these are jobs that I could always quit. Like, see, when I worked as an industrial painter, I was an apprentice in like the union, and should have had a career as like a master painter, and it's like a good job and benefits and this and that. And I let that go for just kind of a bohemian lifestyle. But Kurt Cobain had a job too. He worked for like a janitorial company, and then he would go and clean like dentist office, and then he'd like break into the nitrous oxide. He'd work nights, and he cleaned toilets, and he raised money to pay for our first demo that way with Jack Endino. That's when I just met Jack Endino, or we met Jack Endino, and we recorded our first demo in Seattle, and just kind of living cheap, drinking cheap wine, and really having a lot of fun. I really miss that time.
Yeah, they came in with me and they did 5 hours of recording with Dale on drums, and they didn't have a band name. And most of that stuff has been released. I think about half of it is on Incesticide. Couple tracks ended up on Bleach, and the rest of it is on the box set.
That's producer Jack Endino, who, aside from producing those early Nirvana tapes, also worked on Soundgarden's Screaming Life, Mudhoney's Superfuzz Big Muff EP, and L7's Smell the Magic.
You know, they just came in and blasted out these 10 songs, and Kurt did all the vocals in one take after we had done all the instrumental tracking. And, you know, we literally spent 3 hours recording and 2 hours kind of mixing, and they ran out the door because they had to go play a show in Tacoma that night, which is a good hour away from Seattle, or, you know, in traffic. So it was kind of a lightning fast, you know, setup, roll, get out the door with a tape. But I liked it. I thought it was pretty good. I thought, well, you know, not every band gets, you know, comes in here and records this quickly, you know, but they were a good band and I liked them and I was excited to be recording them. And, you know, who knew?
You know, the Seattle music scene was really coming up, and there were these bands that were getting notoriety, especially in the British press. And like a big band was Soundgarden. They had signed to a major label, and they were a great band. We were like really proud of them, and we aspired to be like Soundgarden. And so, like, we were in this our own little world where we were. It's ironic. I don't know if it's ironic, but like they call this genre of music alternative music. So when like the new version of rock and roll emerged, and then it displaced like Nevermind went to number one, and it displaced Michael Jackson, right? And so instead of saying that that's rock music now, they called it alternative music to just, I guess, preserve the status quo, or try to. So like, oh, this is the real music, then there's the alternative music. So I was offended by that whole idea. And then we were like alternative people. We weren't really into mainstream culture, and identified with punk rock music and the do-it-yourself ethic of it all. And so we were just like working and playing, rehearsing a lot, building up our chops, and just getting better as musicians. Kurt was a really talented songwriter, and he just kept writing songs. He was very motivated. You could never get him to like wash his dishes or clean his apartment, but he wasn't lazy. And he was focusing on just the creative aspect. And if he took a break from music, he would do sculpting. Like he would get clay and make these cool sculptures, or paint, or write stories and those things. And so we just focused on the music, and then one thing led to another, and a lot of people know all these stories anyway. And we were like the biggest band in the world. But what happened is that the mainstream came to us, Like nobody expected Nirvana to be a big band. And the proof of that is, the evidence is that when the Geffen Records, our major label, debut, they printed up, quote unquote, only 50,000 copies of Nevermind, which is like alternative indie gold, right? And so, like, there was a time where Smells Like Teen Spirit was blowing up. It was all over the radio. It was on MTV on heavy rotation. And then you couldn't buy the compact disc. People would go to like Tower Records or these stores and just like, we don't have it. So that added to the mystique of it. Like it was, you couldn't obtain it. And so we were these like alternative people and kind of bewildered by society, which we thought was strange. And I'm sure society thought we were strange weirdos or whatever. And then all of a sudden we're like this number one band in the world. And so that was like a real shock. And so you have to like work through that and adjust to that. And it took me a while to adjust to it. And one of the things that would happen is I'd have dreams. The royal road to the subconscious is the dream, is your dreams. And so I would have dreams where like I was naked in public and like, oh my God, like, why didn't I put my clothes on? And I'm like in a group of people. And I'm just like, I just felt exposed. Then there was all this pressure on Kurt because he was out front, he was singing. So he really had that pressure and he could never seem to let go of that pressure. And there we were. And that's what happened is like on a personal level, how you deal with that. And then here it is, like we're almost in 2022 and I've been through some things where I'm actually reconnecting with that person from the late 80s and like circa 1990 Krist. It's just like, and I can do that because of the luxury that Nirvana affords me. And so that's where the luxury that Nirvana affords me, like some people have mansions in Beverly Hills, private jets, yachts, or whatever, expensive cars. But my luxury is that because I don't have to work at a Sizzler or as an industrial painter, that I could make this life for myself. So society's kind of nuts, and you see it with on social media, especially. Maybe these are these latent behaviors that are part of our evolutionary psychology that we've brought with us over thousands of years, and they manifest themselves a certain way in social media and how people, outgroup effect these things, cancel culture. And then I just like, oh, I don't need to do this. I remember feeling this way, like watching television. Same way, watching television in 1990, just I can't connect with it. I'm not interested in these sitcoms, and the news just seems like filtered and manipulated. So it's amazing how now I'm 56, and at the time I was like 26. And I went through all these stages of just kind of trying to be fit in or deal with society, and it just didn't work. So here I am.
Thanks, Chris, for giving us a glimpse into the early days of Nirvana. At this point, we usually move on to talking about inspirations, and we start there, but we move a little bit into what he's up to today with his activism.
What I'm inspired with is I'm making a lot of music. I've been playing accordion and fingerstyle acoustic guitar. I'm really influenced by John Fahey, this American primitive guitarist, and I try to play like he does. And So I'm doing a lot of music, and should have some couple projects coming together here in 2022. Um, in 2016, I earned a bachelor's of science degree in social sciences, and I did most of it online for Washington State University, and that was a big commitment. I did it part time, like 3/4 time. I would go to school, or half time, because I still like made music in the meantime. I won a Grammy and went on tour and things like that. And I was like studying in college, right? And actually, I was recording with Paul McCartney that cut me some slack, and Paul was doing his vocals, and I was actually in this corner, like listening, but I was also finishing up this paper. And then when he finished his last note of his vocals, I pressed submit, and the paper went. I submitted the paper. I got an A, and then now I started online college again for Masters of Legal Studies. It's like a mini master's. If you go full time, it takes a year to get this Masters of Legal Studies. So, but I do it part time again because I have other commitments and things. So I'm studying environmental law, and that's what I do. Like my politics has always been policy oriented and wonky, but I really participated in politics with, like, I was the chair of the Democratic Party in Wahkiakum County for 4 years, but I quit in 2019, and I'm independent now. And these political narratives just seem like they're manipulation on the right and the left, and I just instead I make these deep policy dives, and so I'm really into campaign financing, electoral systems, and now I'm taking the deep dive into environmental policy with water and oceans because I live on the mouth of the Columbia River. So right now I'm studying ocean law. So I recommend to people, like, if you are interested in politics, it's just like, don't listen to these politicians because they're manipulators. Is just get into the policy, or find people that are like academics, and make up your own mind about these issues.
And that's all for today's episode. We'll have new episodes out every Tuesday. Be sure to look for my book, Live Through That, available everywhere now. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.